One day, you'll wake up and your heart will whisper, "I'm tired of chaos." You'll stop running after storms just to feel alive. You'll stop confusing peace with boredom. And you'll finally understand, calm isn't the absence of life. It's the presence of yourself. That day is the day you'll be reborn, not with noise, not with applause, but with peace that hums quietly in your soul. The day you realize you deserve calm is the day you stop begging for attention and start listening to your own heartbeat. You stop performing for love when you finally realize love isn't an audition. You don't have to sing the right tune, wear the perfect smile, or bend your soul into shapes to be worthy. You don't need to be prettier, quieter, or smarter to deserve to be seen. You don't have to keep rewriting yourself so someone else can read you more easily. Love was never supposed to be earned through exhaustion. It was meant to be felt through truth. But too many people grow up thinking they have to perform, that they must keep giving and giving until someone finally claps. You stop performing for love when you've been the one always showing up first. You've been the one texting, calling, fixing, forgiving. Even when you're breaking inside, you've been the one holding conversations alone, keeping relationships alive through your effort while the other person just watches. You've been taught that love is sacrifice, but no one told you what happens when you become the only one sacrificing. So, one day something changes. Not because you stop caring, but because you finally start caring about yourself too. You wake up and say, "No, I will not prove my worth anymore. My love doesn't need to be a performance." Look around your life. You see it everywhere. The girl who laughs too loud at jokes that aren't funny because she just wants to be liked. The boy who changes the way he speaks just to sound acceptable. The woman who wears a smile while her soul is exhausted. The man who buys affection because he doesn't believe he's enough without it. We are all actors sometimes, performing roles we never auditioned for, just trying to be loved. But love that demands performance is not love. It's control dressed as care. Think of it. When a child runs to their mother with messy hair, dirty clothes, and a wide smile, the mother doesn't ask, "Why do you look like that?" She opens her arms. That's real love. It doesn't demand perfection before it gives acceptance. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that kind of love. We started believing we needed filters before we could be worthy of attention. We started believing we had to impress, to earn, to chase, to prove. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't make you chase, it meets you halfway. You stop performing for love when you learn that peace feels better than applause, because applause fades, but peace stays. The person who claps for you today might walk away tomorrow. But when you start loving yourself without needing the audience, that's when you find your freedom. You realize you're not on stage anymore, you're home. You stop entertaining the ones who only show up when it benefits them. You stop answering calls that come from convenience, not care. You stop shrinking so someone else can feel taller. Maybe you've been in a relationship where you keep apologizing for your emotions, saying sorry just for feeling too deeply, just for wanting to be understood. That's not love, that's survival. You deserve someone who can hold your silence as tenderly as your laughter. You deserve someone who listens when you're quiet and stays even when you're not easy to love. You deserve someone who sees your raw, unfiltered self and says, "Stay as you are, I choose this version." You stop performing for love when you realize you've been enough all along. You start seeing how many times you've betrayed yourself, saying yes when your heart screamed no, staying when you should have walked away, smiling when you wanted to cry. You did it all because you feared losing people. But one day you understand the truth. You can lose people and still not lose yourself, and that is power. You stop seeking validation from others because you start validating yourself. You stop waiting for someone to say, "I'm proud of you," because you whisper it to your own reflection. You stop needing to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. That's when love transforms. From something you beg for into something you embody. You start moving differently. You laugh differently. You walk into rooms and no longer wonder, "Do they like me?" Instead, you ask, "Do I feel peaceful here?" You stop pretending to be okay just to keep others comfortable. You stop dressing your wounds in silence to look strong. You stop loving people who make you feel small just because you're afraid of being alone. You understand that loneliness is sometimes the price of peace, but it's never the price of worth. You stop performing for love when you stop mistaking attention for affection. You stop confusing confusing temporary admiration for genuine care. You stop accepting half efforts from people who can't give you whole hearts, because now you've learned that love isn't about who keeps you entertained. It's about who keeps you safe. And when people leave because you've stopped performing, let them. If your peace makes them uncomfortable, they were never there for your soul. They were there for your show. You no longer need to entertain anyone to deserve love. You realize that the one who truly loves you will love you when the spotlight fades, when the applause dies, when your mascara runs, when your confidence shakes. They'll still stand beside you, not because you perform perfectly, but because you existed honestly. So stop being the actor in someone else's story. Step off the stage, wipe off the makeup of perfection, and breathe. Love doesn't need your performance. It needs your presence. The moment you stop performing for love, you stop losing yourself in the process of being loved. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. You start becoming the calm after years of chaos. You start living, not performing. You start being, not pleasing, because finally you understand you are not here to earn love. You are here to beat love. You understand silence is power. When you stop needing to prove your point to people committed to misunderstanding you, there comes a day when you realize not every battle deserves your voice. Not every argument needs your fire. You learn that sometimes the loudest statement you can ever make is saying nothing at all, because silence has a language. One that only the wise can speak and only the mature can hear. Silence doesn't mean weakness, it means mastery. It's knowing you could respond, you could react, but you choose not to because your peace costs more than their opinion. Think about it. How many times have you wasted your energy trying to explain your heart to people who already made up their minds about you? You talk, you defend, you cry, and still they twist your truth, and one day you finally stop. Not because you've lost the words, but because you found your worth. You understand your silence is not surrender, it's self-respect. You no longer argue to be right. You remain silent to stay at peace. There's a woman who's been accused, gossiped about, misunderstood. She used to defend herself every time, explaining, begging to be seen clearly. But now she just smiles, walks away, and lets time reveal her truth. Because she's learned, time always unmasks the truth that words can't. Her silence confuses those who once fed on her reaction. Because when you stop reacting, you take their power away. Silence becomes your weapon, and peace becomes your armor. You start to notice that silence holds a different kind of energy. You walk into a room full of noise, everyone trying to talk louder than the next person, and you just stand there, composed, calm, grounded. They notice you without you saying a word. That's power. Because energy doesn't need volume, it needs presence. You can feel when someone is centered, when someone is unbothered, when someone has made peace with who they are. Those people don't fight for attention. Their calm demands it. You understand silence is power when you stop explaining yourself to those who don't deserve the explanation. Not everyone earns access to your inner world. Not everyone should know your plans, your pain, your dreams, or your scars. Some things grow best in silence. You don't tell people your next move, you show them the results. You don't defend your choices. You let your peace prove you right. Think of nature. The sun rises without a sound. The moon glows without noise. The ocean doesn't announce its depth. You feel it. The trees don't compete for space. They simply grow. Everything powerful in nature moves quietly. Why shouldn't you? The world teaches us to shout, to show, to explain, to post everything we do, but the wise know that privacy is power and silence is the soil where greatness grows. There's a man who once argued with everyone, at work, at home, online. He had to win every conversation, had to prove he was right. But one day, life broke him in a quiet way. He got tired of being drained, so he stopped. He listened more, spoke less, and began to notice how silence changed the energy around him. People started respecting his words more because he no longer threw them carelessly. His silence made his speech valuable. He realized, the less you speak, the more weight your words carry. When you understand silence is power, you stop responding to every insult. You stop explaining every decision. You stop giving your energy to arguments that lead nowhere. You start observing instead of reacting. You begin to see how loud insecurity is and how quiet confidence sounds. You start valuing peace over proving. You stop needing the last word because your calmness already ended the conversation. There's something deeply magnetic about a person who knows when to stay silent. They walk away from drama with grace, not bitterness. They hear gossip and smile instead of defending the person they've become. They know who they are and they don't need the world's approval to validate it. Their silence is not cold, it's wise. Their quietness is not weakness, it's control. Because the one who can master their tongue can master their world. Imagine a moment when someone tries to provoke you, throws their anger, their insecurity, their words at you like weapons. In the past, you'd fight back, you'd match their fire, you'd burn with them. But now, you stand still, you listen, you breathe, you choose not to respond. They expect war, but you hand them peace. And that silence shakes them more than any argument ever could. That is power. When you can face chaos and remain unshaken, you've mastered yourself. Silence teaches you emotional maturity. It trains your mind to listen instead of react, to observe instead of assume, to pause before you pour. It gives you space to think, to understand that not everything deserves a response. Not everyone deserves your energy. You realize that peace isn't found in controlling situations. It's found in controlling your reaction to them. You start to use silence as your filter. You let people reveal themselves through how they handle your quiet. Some will respect it. Some will be threatened by it. Some will walk away, and you let them, because your silence begins to separate the ones who truly see your soul from those who only wanted your attention. There comes a moment when you're sitting in your own company, no phone, no noise, no conversation, and you feel peace instead of loneliness. That's when you know you've grown. You understand silence is not empty, it's full of answers. It's in silence you hear the voice of your soul. It's in silence you understand who you really are, what you really want, and what truly matters. You start to appreciate silence in daily life. Morning coffee without chaos, a quiet evening drive, a walk under the stars without music, just the sound of your thoughts finding peace. You realize silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything real is unfolding quietly. When you understand silence is power, you no longer rush to fill empty spaces with words. You let moments breathe. You let your spirit rest. You trust that what's meant for you doesn't need to be shouted for. It will arrive softly, silently, right on time. You protect your energy like it's sacred when you finally understand that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. You stop letting people drain you just because you're afraid to disappoint them. You stop saying yes out of guilt and start saying no out of wisdom. You begin to treat your peace like a priceless jewel, handled carefully, protected fiercely, and never given freely to those who come with dirty hands. Because your energy is your life force, your emotional currency, your spiritual breath, and once it's gone, everything around you begins to fall apart. There comes a time when you start to see how heavy certain people make your soul feel. You notice that after talking to them, you feel tired instead of inspired, empty instead of full. You begin to realize that not everyone who smiles at you comes with good intentions. Not every hug carries warmth, and not every "I'm here for you" is sincere. So you start to protect your energy, not by building walls, but by planting gardens around your soul. You choose who gets to enter, who gets to stay, and who must go. You start to understand that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. The world will try to convince you that being kind means being available to everyone, but kindness without boundaries becomes destruction. Think about the phone that never recharges. No matter how smart it is, it eventually dies. You're no different. You can't keep giving, listening, helping, healing, and showing up for everyone if you never show up for yourself. You begin to realize that saying no is not rejection, it's protection. There's a woman who used to be everyone's rescuer. Her friends, her family, her co-workers all came to her with their storms. She carried everyone's pain like it was her duty, until one day she broke under the weight. That day she didn't answer the phone. She didn't apologize. She took a walk by herself, felt the sun, and whispered, "I need to rest." That was the day she discovered how powerful it feels to guard her energy, not out of coldness, but out of love for herself. You protect your energy when you stop explaining why you're distant. You stop apologizing for needing space. You stop feeling guilty for wanting solitude. You learn that silence isn't rejection, it's self-repair. You learn that peace requires distance from chaos, and not everyone can come with you where you're going. You start saying, "I can't pour from an empty cup," and you mean it. You stop letting people borrow your light and leave you in darkness. You begin to notice how many small ways your energy gets stolen. That coworker who always complains, you used to listen out of politeness, now you politely excuse yourself. That friend who only calls when they need something, you used to rush to help, now you take your time. That person who keeps comparing your journey to theirs, you stop explaining, you just smile and keep walking. You stop entertaining conversations that bring your vibration down because you finally understand every word, every person, every environment affects your spirit. Think of it like your home. You wouldn't let someone walk into your living room with muddy shoes and destroy your floor. So why let them walk into your mind with negativity and destroy your peace? You begin to lock your doors, not out of fear, but out of respect. You protect your space because it took years to build. You protect your energy when you stop chasing people who keep showing you they don't value you. You stop begging for time, for attention, for clarity. You stop trying to fix broken connections that were never meant to last. You learn that closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's a quiet decision. You stop explaining why you're done and simply move on because you realize not everyone deserves access to your spirit. Some people only deserve your absence. You start to protect your energy from your own thoughts too. You notice the way self-doubt sneaks in, how fear whispers, how guilt pulls you back. You learn to silence those voices. You talk to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. You forgive yourself instead of punishing yourself. You protect your inner world from your own storms because you realize the mind can be your home or your battlefield. And you choose peace. There's a man who used to argue with everyone. Every comment, every insult, every disagreement, he had to fight back. But one day he stopped. He realized not every battle was worth his fire. Some people weren't looking for truth, they were looking for attention. So he began to protect his energy by walking away, by choosing silence, by choosing peace over pride. That's when his life changed. Because the one who can control his energy controls his destiny. You protect your energy by being intentional about where you spend your time. You no longer go places that make your soul shrink. You don't engage in gossip because you understand words carry vibration. You choose to be around people who make you laugh easily, breathe freely, and dream boldly. You choose music that uplifts, conversations that heal, and habits that nourish your growth. You become selective, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aware of how sacred your spirit truly is. You protect your energy when you start honoring rest. You learn to unplug, to say I'll get back to you tomorrow, to let the world spin without your constant participation. You take walks, you read in silence, you watch sunsets. You understand that doing nothing sometimes means doing everything your soul needs, because healing often happens in the moments when you finally allow yourself to stop rushing. You begin to live in balance, no longer pouring into others until you're empty. You fill your own cup first and share only from your overflow. You start to feel lighter, freer, more in control. People begin to notice your peace and they wonder what changed. They don't know you've been silently guarding your energy like a precious flame. You protect your energy when you stop over-explaining your peace to people addicted to chaos. You realize you owe no one a justification for your boundaries, your quietness, or your happiness. You start valuing inner calm more than outer approval, and slowly life starts feeling like home again. Not because everything around you changed, but because you did. You stop mistaking chaos for passion when you finally understand that love doesn't need to hurt to feel real. You stop confusing pain with depth, drama with connection, and intensity with intimacy. For too long, you've believed that the louder the fight, the deeper the love, that the sleepless nights, the constant texting, the endless arguments followed by apologies meant something magical. You thought the adrenaline was affection. But then you learn, real passion doesn't drain you, it nourishes you. It doesn't leave you shaking, it leaves you grounded. It doesn't make you question your worth, it makes you remember it. You stop mistaking chaos for passion when you've lived through the storm enough times to recognize peace as a miracle. You begin to notice how you once called toxicity chemistry, how you once believed that love meant sacrifice, that if it wasn't consuming you, it wasn't real. You remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep and called it just a phase. You remember the apologies that came wrapped in empty promises. You remember how you kept choosing people who made you feel anxious, calling that feeling love. But then one day something shifts. You grow tired of emotional roller coasters and start craving calm waters. You meet someone who doesn't raise their voice, who listens before reacting, who doesn't make you beg to be understood. And at first it feels strange. You wait for the chaos, for the argument, for the drama, but it never comes, and you realize how addicted you were to emotional noise. You realize how silence felt uncomfortable because peace was unfamiliar. But slowly you begin to heal. You start to understand that healthy love isn't boring, it's stable, that calm doesn't mean the absence of emotion, it means the presence of security. You see it in everyday life. The girl who keeps running back to the man who makes her cry because she says, he just loves me too much. The boy who chases after the girl who ignores him because he thinks the chase means she's worth it. The couple who fights every week and calls it passion. The friend who says, if it's too easy, it's not love. We've been trained to believe that comfort means dullness. But love that exhausts you is not love. It's attachment wrapped in chaos. You stop mistaking chaos for passion. When you understand that peace can be just as powerful, there's a different kind of fire. The quiet one that doesn't burn you but warms you. It's not the fireworks that last seconds. It's the candlelight that stays through the night. Passion isn't measured by how loud two people can shout. It's seen in how gently they can speak, even when they disagree. It's not about slamming doors, blocking numbers, or walking away to make a point. It's about staying, talking, understanding, and growing. There's a woman who used to believe that if her heart wasn't racing, it wasn't love. She fell for men who gave her chaos, the thrill of unpredictability, the highs and lows that made her feel alive. But over time, she realized that those highs came with deep crashes. She was constantly anxious, checking her phone, rereading texts, replaying arguments. One day she met a man who spoke softly, who didn't make her guess, who didn't play games. At first she thought, maybe it's too calm. But as days passed, she slept peacefully for the first time in years. She realized calm wasn't the absence of love, it was the presence of maturity. You stop mistaking chaos for passion when you realize how peace transforms you. You start liking your own company. You don't need emotional turbulence to feel alive anymore. You enjoy stability, waking up without anxiety, being loved without fear, communicating without shouting. You stop seeking people who test your limits and start seeking those who respect them. You begin to see how drama is not love. It's the echo of your unhealed wounds calling for attention. You stop entertaining relationships that drain you emotionally. You stop thinking that jealousy means love or that manipulation means care. You stop tolerating the back and forth, the inconsistency, the games. You start wanting honesty over excitement, loyalty over mystery, peace over passion, because you realize that the strongest passion doesn't come from chaos. It comes from consistency. The fire that lasts is the one protected by respect, not fueled by argument. There's a man who grew up watching his parents fight, shouting 1 minute, hugging the next. He grew up thinking that love had to be wild, loud, dramatic. So he carried that belief into his own relationships. He'd pick fights just to feel connected, start arguments just to feel seen, until one day he met someone who refused to play that game. She walked away from chaos and gave him silence. At first it angered him, but then he saw how peaceful her silence was. Slowly, he learned that love isn't about winning arguments. It's about building understanding. You stop mistaking chaos for passion when you realize peace can be thrilling too. The thrill of being trusted, the excitement of not overthinking, the joy of feeling safe in someone's presence. You start craving deep talks over drama, laughter over loudness, eye contact over ego. You learn that calm doesn't mean cold. It means confident. It means both people are secure enough to not need chaos to feel alive. You stop chasing after storms when you realize you were born for sunlight. You stop feeding emotional fires that keep burning you. You stop mistaking pain for proof that something matters. You learn that passion isn't found in how loud someone can shout your name. It's found in how softly they can protect your heart. You stop mistaking chaos for passion when you finally understand that true love doesn't make you lose yourself. It helps you find peace in who you are. You forgive to free yourself, not to excuse others. When you realize that holding on to pain only ties you to the people who hurt you, you stop thinking forgiveness means saying, it's okay. Because it wasn't okay. What they did, what they said, what they broke, none of it was right. But you also begin to see that carrying the weight of their wrongs doesn't punish them. It punishes you. Every sleepless night, every replayed memory, every imaginary argument you keep having in your head, it doesn't touch them, it only burns you. So you forgive not because they deserve peace, but because you do. You forgive so you can finally breathe again. There comes a point when you get tired of reliving the same wound. You've been angry for so long that anger has become your second skin. You wake up with it, walk with it, sleep with it. It follows you like a shadow, whispering reminders of what they did. You start realizing your heart is full of ghosts. People who don't even think about you anymore, yet they still live rent-free in your mind. That's when forgiveness stops being about them. It becomes a declaration of your freedom. You say to yourself, I'm done bleeding for what they broke. Forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't happen. It's not letting someone back in to hurt you again. It's not erasing your boundaries. Forgiveness is standing tall and saying, you no longer have control over me. You reclaim your energy. You cut the cord that keeps you tied to their memory. Because when you hold resentment, you're keeping the past alive inside you, and it keeps draining your present. Forgiveness is the moment you decide that your future deserves more than your past pain. Think about it. You've seen people who can't move on, the woman who keeps talking about her even years later, not because she still loves him, but because she still hates him. The man who can't trust anyone because one person betrayed him once, the friend who never opens up again because someone took advantage of their kindness. They all built walls, not to protect themselves, but to hide their scars. But walls don't heal wounds, they only block sunlight. Forgiveness tears those walls down so light can reach where darkness once lived. You forgive to free yourself when you realize life isn't waiting for your bitterness to end. The world keeps moving, the sun keeps rising, and time keeps passing, whether you heal or not. So you make a choice. Stay bitter and carry the pain forever, or release it and finally start living again. You understand that letting go isn't weakness, it's courage. The kind of courage that says, I refuse to let what they did define who I am. There's a woman who was betrayed by someone she trusted most. A friend who lied, a lover who cheated, a family member who turned away when she needed them. For months, she replayed the betrayal, wondering why, asking how, until one morning she looked in the mirror and saw the tiredness in her own eyes. She realized she had become a prisoner of her own anger. That day, she didn't forgive them because they asked for it. They never did. She forgave because she was done living in their shadow. She whispered, I forgive you, not because you deserve peace, but because I deserve mine. And that day, she took her power back. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still choose never to speak to them again. You can wish them peace from a distance and still protect your boundaries. You can release resentment without returning to the relationship. Forgiveness is internal. It's something you do for your soul, not for theirs. You can't heal if you keep holding the wound open, waiting for them to come apologize. Some people will never say sorry, and that's okay. You don't need their words to close your wounds. You only need your decision. You begin to understand that forgiveness is not about forgetting, it's about remembering differently. Instead of reliving the pain, you start learning from it. You realize what it taught you about people, about strength, about yourself. The pain becomes wisdom, the heartbreak becomes clarity, the betrayal becomes fuel. You stop saying, why me? And start saying, thank you for showing me what I won't allow again. There's a man who carried bitterness toward his father for decades. His father had left when he was young, and he grew up angry, determined to prove himself. But no matter how successful he became, something inside him remained empty. One day he wrote a letter, not to send, but to release. He poured out every hurt, every memory, every unspoken word, and at the end he wrote, I forgive you, not because his father earned it, but because he wanted to stop carrying that weight. When he finished, he felt something lift, years of silent heaviness leaving his chest. That's the power of forgiveness. It doesn't change the past, but it transforms the way it lives inside you. Forgiveness teaches you emotional maturity. It teaches you that revenge doesn't bring peace. It brings more poison. It teaches you that you can't heal while hoping someone else suffers. It teaches you that healing is a personal decision, not a mutual agreement. You realize that forgiving someone doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable because no one can control a heart that's learned to let go. You forgive to free yourself when you realize anger takes too much energy. You start noticing how it clouds your thoughts, tightens your body, steals your sleep. You see how resentment ages you faster than time. You realize peace feels lighter, calmer, easier. Forgiveness becomes your self-care, your rebellion, your healing. You choose it again and again. Every time the memory tries to rise, you whisper to yourself, I'm free now. You no longer live here. You forgive not because they deserve your kindness, but because you deserve your life back. You stop letting their actions dictate your emotions. You stop waiting for justice to make you feel whole. You stop giving them power through your pain, because when you forgive, you untie yourself from the past and step fully into the present. present. You begin to breathe differently, think differently, live differently. Forgiveness becomes your silent revolution, the moment your soul finally chooses peace over punishment. So now, if your heart still trembles when you hear their name, if your soul still aches when the memory replays, remember this: forgiveness is not about what they did, it's about what you deserve. You deserve peace. You deserve freedom. You deserve to walk into tomorrow without the chains of yesterday. Because the truth is, the more you cling to pain, the more it controls you. But the moment you release it, the moment you say, it's over. Not for them, but for me, that's when you win the quietest, strongest victory of all. Life is too short to live bitter. You can't heal while you keep reopening the wound. You can't fly if you're still holding stones in your heart. So let go, not because they apologized, not because they changed, but because you're ready to rise higher than the pain. You're ready to reclaim your joy. You're ready to walk with lightness again. Remember, storms don't last forever, but your peace can, if you choose it. Forgiveness isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your healing. The moment you forgive, you stop being the victim and become the author of your own life again. You take the pen back from pain and start writing a new chapter, one filled with strength, wisdom, and freedom. And maybe the world won't know how much you had to go through to smile again, but your soul will. And that's enough. Listen. People will break you, betray you, misunderstand you. Some will never say sorry. Some will never see your worth. But that's not your burden to carry. You were not sent here to stay wounded. You were sent here to grow, to shine, to become. Don't let bitterness blur your light. Don't let anger harden your heart. Forgive, not to let them back in, but to let yourself out. Because when you forgive, you're not saying you win. You're saying you no longer control my peace. There's power in peace. A power that silence can't describe, but your soul can feel. That's the kind of peace that lets you walk past people who once broke you and smile, not because you forgot, but because you healed. The kind that makes you say, you hurt me, but you didn't destroy me. You wounded me, but you didn't end me. And that right there is grace, divine, unstoppable, fearless grace. The most powerful revenge is peace. The most beautiful closure is moving on. And the most courageous act of all is forgiving without receiving an apology. Because when you can stand tall, look back at your pain and say, thank you for teaching me who I am, you've already won a battle many never will. So, guard your heart, but don't lock it. Love, but love wisely. Forgive, but never forget the lessons, because forgiveness doesn't mean blindness, it means clarity. You've seen the worst and you still choose to walk in light. That's not weakness, that's strength in its purest form. You were not meant to live heavy. You were not meant to carry anger like armor. You were meant to walk free, lighter, brighter, unstoppable. And when you finally release what hurt you, you make room for what will heal you. The peace you've been searching for is not somewhere out there. It's in your choice to let go. Remember these words. I don't forgive because I'm weak. I forgive because I'm tired of being controlled by what's behind me. And let your past be your teacher, not your prison. Let your scars remind you of what you survived, not what you lost. Because the truth is, your strength didn't come from what went right. It came from what didn't destroy you. And one day, when someone asks you how you did it, how you kept going, how you stayed soft in a world that tried to harden you, you simply smile and say, I forgave, I chose peace, I chose me. And that would be your greatest victory. Not the applause of others, but the quiet roar of your own soul finally set free.